You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. What mi familia? Welcome to another epic episode of the Comic Crusaders Podcast. And today, we're leveling up with a creator that's tapping straight into that divine storytelling energy, let me tell you, all right? He's bringing the heat, he's bringing style, and he's doing it with the squad over at Nakama Press, the manga arm of Mad Cave Studios. All right, get ready to meet the one, the only big boss here that's going to be dropping all the inside secrets behind his brand new manga-style graphic novel, God Tier, Volume 1, Prey. Oof. We're talking gods, monsters, and a whole lot of destiny, baby. So strap in, fam, because it's time to ascend with the big boss himself, Mr. Mario Long, baby. How you doing?
All right. That was a fantastic intro. I don't think I can beat that.
I'm excited, man. I said in the green room, I'm reading the book. I'm getting a feel for the world building that you and your partner are doing within this particular book. And let me tell you, I'm getting hooked like a fish over here. I'm carrying, like, oh man, what's going on here? It has humor, but it has connection. Yeah. What's going on? You have a mixture of stuff going on. I'm like, all right, wait, what direction he's going? But then I'm starting to see some foundation here. Like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Is this guy gonna take us where I think? I think, but we're gonna find out all about that, folks, in just a minute, man. I always love my good old origin story, especially for a first-time guest. So you gotta tell me where you are originally from, and the most important question you'll ever be asked: what is the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Oh, wow. All right. First off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So to answer your question, I am from Detroit, Michigan. Born and raised in the suburbs just outside of Detroit. And the first thing that I really got into that was my fandom was Star Wars. Okay. I was one of those kids. I grew up right when I think Empire Strikes Back was coming out. Star Wars: A New Hope was the first movie I ever saw at 3 or 4 that I remember. I've got pictures of me in pajamas, glow in the dark, pajamas with Darth Vader and stuff on it. And that was the first thing for me. And we actually just had, what's that?
I was gonna say, I really wonder how different my life would have been had my parents taken me to a Star Wars as my first movie, as opposed to a horror movie.
Well, no. So my mother is a huge horror movie fan. So I've seen probably every 80s, early 90s horror movie that's out. Even like the Tremorville, B movie stuff. I watched all of it every Friday night. That was
the cheesier the better. I know my ex-wife used to do that. While we were watching movies, big fan. We'll wind up calling them her name movies. That type. It's like, it's one of her movies. Because it was so bad. It's like we gotta watch it.
Well, my mom, she would rent Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason Voorhees, all this stuff, and then she would fall asleep. So she'd start A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then she'd fall asleep, and my brother and I are just sitting here watching this movie at 5, 6 years old. So yeah, maybe some trauma in there, and maybe that affects my writing now. But yeah. Big horror movie fan as well, and Star Wars, and then I got into Marvel. When I was a young kid, I saw Marvel, I saw DC, and I was addicted.
How did you find it? How did you get exposed to Marvel DC? Was it the comic books? Was it the cartoon? Was it a sibling?
It was a cousin. So I'll give a shout out to my cousin Darren. He's my big brother Darren. He had some comic books. I think it was Wolverine. It was something like that. And then the way he explained it, the way he was so involved in the lore. He talked about Silver Surfer and how he was the herald of not Apocalypse, of Galactus. Yeah. And just and as a kid, my imagination just took off. I was in an area at that time that was pretty rough. And that gave me a way to escape and just kind of live in a fantasy world that was safe, and that was kind of how I got into everything else was comic books and kung fu movies.
Oh, bro, eventually Kung Fu on my joint too, bro. Come on.
Yeah. Shaw Brothers. Shout out to Shaw Brothers movies.
Come on.
Yeah, and that eventually got me into samurai films, Kurosawa Akira movies and Seven Samurai, all that stuff,
Yeah.
Yojimbo, and then that got me into anime, so that was kind of the pathway.
But there we go. All right, now let's talk about the origin story as a writer. I mean, would you say that you were bitten by a radioactive manga, or struck by lightning while reading Berserk? Like, how did it happen?
No, I mean it's interesting because I'm a huge like American comic book fan. I probably have over 7,000, 8,000 comic books in my collection.
Oh wow.
Um, Actually, I just picked up Infinity War, or sorry, Secret War. I got the last book of 12. I've been collecting this series since 1986, I think, and yesterday
You finally finished it.
I got my Thanos putting the Infinity Stone on the last in the
Yeah.
last place. So I'm a huge American comic book fan, and then I kind of got into manga. There's a series called Lone Wolf and Cub, Kotsure Okami, and it blew me away. It's if you haven't seen it in America, it's called Shogun Assassin. If you're
Yeah.
if you're an old school like kung fu samurai film guy, this is it's the story about the guy who is a executioner for the shogun. Shogun goes crazy, sends ninjas to his house to kill him, but they kill his wife, and then he has a baby. He has a baby boy, and he puts a ball in the sword, and he goes, son, choose. If you choose the ball, play with your mother in heaven, meaning choose the sword, and you're going to come with me and get revenge. So that manga I saw, and it blew me away. And then Akira, Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira. If you've seen the movie Akira, there's actually a series that it's based off of, and the series is much, much bigger than the movie. So those two things I read, I saw it, blew me away, and it led to me eventually moving to Japan.
And talking about that line that you just stated from that film, wasn't that on Jizza's second album?
Yes, yes, Liquid Swords,
Yeah, man.
man.
Classic,
Yes,
classic
I,
Wu album right there.
yes. I listen to Liquid Swords maybe like once a week. The
Yeah,
intro is just that's one of my favorite albums. And yes, that all those sound bites are from Shogun Assassin, which is Lone Wolf and Cub.
yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Again, Wu, focus. I don't know. I had a neighbor that says, "Oh, that's my least favorite of the Wu albums." I'm like, are you nuts? Are
It's okay.
you nuts?
It's okay. I mean, some people
No,
might like
okay.
Cuban Link. Some people might like Tikal. Some people, it's.
Uh,
I'm actually an Old Dirty Bastard fan. So
Oh, but
so
yeah, but I bought that first album. I got the figure OD on the full coupon card over here.
yeah.
Hey, all right. So let's get back. Yo, God tier, right? That ain't no humble title right there, son. For real. So what inspired you to go like full deity mode for your
Yeah.
debut with Nakama
Yeah.
Press?
Yeah. So maybe I can explain what the story is a little bit and kind of how we got to, right? So
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of like Greek mythology, a lot of science fiction, and so I had this idea for the story, which is inspired by Greek mythology, and a few other mythologies as well. Once you read it, you might see some other people pop in, but mainly it's Greek mythology, right? And I realized that a lot of these stories that we know are actually a little bit older than just from Greece. They actually came from some other places. So that was the thing that kind of started this project. And it was named something different. It had a different name. I won't say what the name is now because it'll confuse you. But it had a different name at first, and then we published it. We launched it in Japan. So I got published in Japan, and then we moved it to the U.S. And I thought, what's a better name for this that I think would kind of well, first off, God Tier I think is just a dope name. And I was surprised, as far as I know, if somebody else has put out something before, but as far as I know, no one's ever made a manga called God Tier. And really what it means is that in this world you have the Greek gods are living in this world. They come down from Mount Olympus and they live in this world, and there's different levels to it, right? So you have obviously us weak humans, we have monsters, so like your Minotaur, your Medusa, those kind of things, and then you've got your demigods, right, that are like half human half god, and then there's a level called Omega God. And the Omega gods are like these kind of younger gods, and they're called Omega because they're the last ones, kind of, to kind of enter Olympus. But
yeah,
this is like your Apollo, your Athena, your Ares.
yeah.
Um,
I know.
Yeah, and then above that you've got the alpha gods, right? And this is your Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Hestia. These are like a little bit more powerful gods that were kind of the first ones. And actually before them are the Titans. And these actually, sorry, these are actually the ones that were the first ones to kind of enter to make this world that we're from. And so you have these levels, and each one is a little bit more powerful than the other one. We have a card game actually that we're about to publish, hopefully sometime next year. And that one, the tier mechanics are very important. If you're fighting someone that's one or two tiers above you, you need to have backup. So that's kind of where the name came from.
I'm sure the way you explain it, man, I ain't trying to
Yeah.
get my ass kicked.
Yeah, actually, I tell you what, I'm going to send you a copy of the card game, and it hasn't been released yet. So you'll have one of the first copies of the game. It'll be in Japanese, but you'll have a copy of it. Maybe if I can meet you in person in San Diego or something like that.
I will be going to San Diego.
Okay, yeah, I think it looks like I might be there as well with my team. Trying to get a booth, maybe we'll see how it goes, or a panel. We'll see.
Let's go, man. I'll be there.
Yeah,
I'll see you at your booth. I'm already manifesting it. Now, let's talk about that vibe, though. Like what's the world of it? Pray like, for example, are we talking divine drama, apocalyptic madness, or just some gods just skip therapy and just chilling?
Yeah. Well, this one has a different vibe than anything else that I've seen that handles Greek mythology, right? So our gods don't walk around in togas for the most part. It's actually the modern world, and so it's a world that looks very much like ours, but it's a little bit different. So in this world, you have these places called sanctuaries, and you can go to these sanctuaries, and in each one is maybe is to honor a specific god or a tier of god. Maybe there's a sanctuary for alphas or a sanctuary for omegas, but you can pray at this avatar, right? You can pray at this place in the sanctuary, and the gods will get those prayers like emails almost. And so you can kind of ask for things, and they ignore most of it. But you have this guy named Typhon, and Typhon is called the god of monsters, and there's a reason why. He basically makes all the monsters that show up in God tier. He has these gas canisters that if you inhale this gas, it just brings out the worst qualities of you. So if you're impulsive, aggressive, angry, you turn into someone that looks like Minotaur. If you're a bit vain and you want people to look at you and you want to kind of like over exaggerate your sexuality a bit, maybe you might turn into someone who looks like Medusa. So Typhon has this ability to kind of mutate people into monsters, so he's called the god of monsters. And then he's also kind of the head person leading this like movement, this revolution that's taken over the entire world at the same time. And this ideal I really got from 2020, during the pandemic. There was obviously a lot of things happening, during the next couple of years from that. But there was also a lot of civil unrest. If you remember, we had George Floyd. You had what was happening in Hong Kong, which is closer to where I was at that time. And so you had all these things in Europe, all this people protesting and rioting. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what if one person actually was kind of controlling that? You know what I mean? Like, what if one person was kind of just nudging these different places to kind of like, they have this anger and they harnessed it. And that's what Typhon is. And so what he's done is he's kind of incited people to revolt. Okay. And I'll say revolt because I want to, differentiate between a protester and a rioter. Right. Yeah. And so there's a scene early on in the book where you have a protest that turns into a riot. And it just takes one or two things to kind of push things over and kind of mutate a protest in something that becomes violent and horrible and destructive. And so that's the world that the story starts in, is Typhon's kind of turning protests into riots. And eventually this family, Pablo and his sister Anna, are sent to get help. We need help. So please go to the sanctuary. Please pray to the gods to help us to stop this horrible riot that's burning down our city. And that's kind of where the story is kind of starting.
Gotcha. So tell us a bit about the protagonist, if you will. What makes this character, someone that worth rooting for in the middle of all this, conflict.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's they're a family called the Costello family. They're not from classic Greek mythology, so they're characters that I made up. But it's like your classic your father who is like a retired boxer who's kind of his best days are behind him. He's a bit stubborn. His wife is a devout believer in the gods. Like she prays. She has a prayer necklace that actually, as it turns out, you actually can kind of it'll unlock kind of an express email to the gods, right? So she has this way to talk to gods that she hasn't ever used. You're going to use it one time. And so the two of them are kind of at odds, where he's a skeptic, doesn't believe in the gods. She does. And then they have these two children, Anna, who's kind of like early 20s, late teens, who's kind of a believer like her mother, but also wants to be a bit independent. She has a boyfriend, Miguel, that, she's just kind of trying to have this relationship with. And then you have Pablo. And Pablo is, he's kind of like a early, middle school student who's kind of his heads are in the clouds. He has this mysterious imaginary friend that's a cyclops that kind of feeds him answers to tests and things like that. But he gets in trouble a lot because he's always doodling. He's always kind of like talking to himself, and people think he's weird. But these four are living in this house, and when the riot gets right to their doorstep, they have to evacuate. But their mother is sick and she can't, and so they ask the gods to stop this fire before it burns down their apartment with their mother in it and their father in it. But this family is just trying to survive in this really, larger than life story, and so we they're the vehicle to look into this larger world of demigods, monsters, and gods.
I dig it. And let me show people, 'cause we're talking here about the dope book. Right here, this is the cover, baby, right there. Got to volume 1, baby. Look at that. Now, before we go further into the universe, talk about the bromance between you and your creative partner, your professional, get together there. Like, how that happened? How did you meet your creative partner to build this book? Because as I'm telling you, as I'm reading, I'm on page 30 right now. Honestly,
Okay.
just the art really sticks out. Really nice. That pages flow nice. The emotion, and of course, I said your writing. I'm already I'm connecting with the characters, so that's something if you could do that, and you did that way before the 30 pages, of course, because okay, I'm digging, you made me laugh, so once anything makes me laugh, sorry, I bet they're doing something here, and actually, I
Yeah.
find it funny for the character, so
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. This is it's a slow burn story. I mean, there is action in it, but it's not something you're gonna immediately have, people exploding and stuff like that. Maybe a bit later, but there's a prologue to it as well that might throw people off a bit because it says that it's in the present, but that it's people that look like they're in Greece, and then the next chapter is the past, and it looks like it's the modern world. So um it's almost like a Citizen Kane kind of thing. If you've ever watched Citizen, I'm a huge film buff, so um but anyway, sorry. So the artist is an artist named Kuroi. Kuroi is a Japanese lady that I met here years ago through my business partner Chi, and she introduced me to Kuroi. And then we also have some other artists as well that are working on the book, mainly Pablo, actually, coincidentally, a guy named Pablo, and UFO, who did colors, and a few other. It was a collaborative process, but basically, I wrote the book, and then I wanted to partner with somebody that I thought had a different style from what I had seen, and Kuroi I thought was the perfect match for that. We, at some point we'll release. There's actually a color version of this, which I think is beautiful.
oh really?
Yeah. So typically manga is black and white, and so
Yeah.
we're gonna publish this as a traditional manga. But at some point, I hope people have a chance to also see the color version because we put a lot of work into that, and it's nice. But that's how we collaborated, and we did 2 volumes. So there's volume 1, which you have right now, and then volume 2 is going to come out in August. Each volume is about 180 plus pages, and you read it from left to right like a traditional U.S. comic book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
thank you.
we
That
yeah,
made
so it's a little bit easier for you.
Not that
Yeah.
I don't dislike it. I mean, it's different, and I could do it, not a problem. But
Mhm.
Thank you. This is much more easier. Yeah. I
Well,
was that's the
what's
first thing I looked at. I said, "Oh man, please tell me it's American stuff." I
yeah.
had to prepare myself for the other way. Like hold on.
Yeah, so this is it's kind of a hybrid, right? Like I said, my roots are American, like U.S. comic books and mainstream, like the Marvel, DC stuff and Image Comics, and so I wanted something that was a hybrid in between traditional manga and U.S. comic books, and I'm thinking this is a bridge between the two. And hopefully it's a good compromise between the two, but it should look different than other anime, other manga, and I think the story is different than other things that you've seen that deal with Greek mythology. So hopefully it's its own thing that's unique.
No, you're talking about 2 volumes here, man. So let's get into that. Some real talk here. So, like, you got 2 volumes. You got the one popping right now. You have another one dropping in August plus. So with that, like, what would you say are some of the most challenging parts of writing? God's here, and without so many actual divine intervention.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So my writing process is typically I get a spark, right? And in this case I had a spark where I think I was watching George Clinton or something, and
Wait, what's this? Jefferson Starship?
yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, it was just, and I think maybe they, maybe I can't say it too much because it'll spoil what the big surprises of the
Okay.
thing. But once I got the idea, I always go straight to the end, right? If I watch a lot of movies, right? If the ending pops, the movie pops. If the ending doesn't pop, then it's a waste of time, right? And so when you think about, like, the usual suspects, or something that has an ending where
I
you're like,
love that
whoa,
movie. Fuck
yeah,
it.
yeah, I can watch that, a lot of times, and just having an ending like that, it makes the time worthwhile, right? and
Yes, it
and,
does.
and if I invite you to read the book, you're going to put money, you're going to put time. It's going to actually take time for you to see the story end, right? Because we're releasing new issues, maybe every 6 months after volume 2. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to ask you for your money, for your time, for your support, I want to make sure that when you get to the end of it, you think, wow. Okay, so that's what I did first, and this story has an ending that I think will blow people away, and so
Yeah.
that was, I had the bookmarks, right? I had the spark and I had the ending, and then you basically you get from point A to Z, and then I thought, well, the story has to be about people, right? You have these huge gods, these titans that are bigger than the regular gods and monsters, but all of that is kind of like, it's noise, it's people playing with toys and mash them together if there's not a story with heart. And so that's where I thought about this family, and especially the relationship between Pablo and his sister Anna, right? And I thought that has to be the heart of the story. And then they take us into this bigger world. They take us into this place where there's these larger than life Minotaur and Medusa and Hydras, and I think it just had to be rooted in the human experience of things that people can relate to. If you've ever had a sibling, I have two big brothers and a sister, and one of my big brothers, we used to fight like cats and dogs, right? And I was the youngest, right? Or I am the youngest still, so I know what it's like to be that mess up kid that the big sister is like, why are you always messing up? And I think people can relate to that, and
Right.
also being a kid that maybe have had trouble concentrating in class. Pablo's getting in trouble with his teacher. His parents are like, why can't you focus more? His father's like, why aren't you tough? Like, I was a retired boxer. So the story, the writing comes from all of that, and a lot of it is kind of my experience, but amplified to 100.
Gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha. All right. So, you're building lore, action, emotion, philosophy.
yeah.
Right. So, how do you balance all that without turning the script into a holy mess?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Especially with Greek mythology, you have so many characters, right? And you have, and actually there's different interpretations of the story as well, right? It's depending on who you're reading. Minotaur's story is different. Zeus's story sometimes is different, and I wanted to just kind of make my own truth of this. Um, and I think that's what I tried to do, was just find a way to to focus it on this family, and then for them to kind of go off on these little side quests. So this book, you actually see the origin of Medusa, which
Okay.
I don't think maybe there's like a Hercules TV show back in the 90s. I don't know, but I've never seen a movie or a show really give her a proper backstory of like why she is what, the way she is, and why she's a monster. Why she, trying to kill everybody who comes into her lair. We do the same thing for Minotaur. What's that?
It's not her fault. It's the snakes.
Well, actually, if you know the lore, it's a really tragic story, as almost all Greek mythology is, right? But she was kind of like abused by the gods, right? They did something really horrible to her, and maybe you read it and you'll see it, but she's actually more of a victim than a villain, right?
It's just somebody that's mad.
Yeah, but I think that could happen to any of us, right? Something happens to her in the story that I think if it happened to you, how would you react to it? And I don't see any of these characters as cookie cutter, black or white, good or bad, right? Even Typhon, who's the main the antagonist of the story. Once you find out kind of why he's doing what he's doing, you might not agree with him, but I think you'll understand it at least. He's not like a mustache twirling villain trying to take over the world to dominate it. He's trying to free the world of the influence of these gods. So all of these characters I try to make a little bit more three-dimensional, and you might find yourself rooting for the bad guy, so to speak, or thinking the good guy is a jerk. But hopefully they all have a little bit of a personality, and as you read it, hopefully you attach to it, and you want to see what happens next.
Let me ask you here: do you have a moment in this book that made you go, "Yo, I'm a genius"? Drop the scene. You're like fire. That you're proud of. Talk about
there is a moment in volume 2, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's the characters are in a pinch, and I thought, how would I get myself out of this pinch, right? And I'm not a fan of, like, what is it, Deus Ex Machina, where people are in a pinch and then the writer just is like, all right, this happens and they get out of it. So I thought, how to get out of this situation that they're in. They find a solution. And then the guy who offers it, you're thinking, okay, maybe he's a decent human being after all. And then he reveals that the reason why, his actual solution was, something that maybe wasn't so good. He was trying to take advantage of some people in the group. And it's a little funny beat, but I thought, wow, actually that's a kind of a funny thing. And obviously as the writer, that has to be in my head somewhere, maybe that's a part of my personality. Hopefully a very, very small part, but that's where I thought, wow, that is so not like the way I normally would think. And now I'm able to let these characters breathe and come alive because it was a very subconscious thing that I wrote. And so that was a moment where I thought that was pretty cool. And then there's a moment where I won't say, who it is, but we lose a character. We lose a character that I one of my favorite characters. And I thought it's some of my favorite things like Game of Thrones or
heartbreak over here, guys. I'm reading the book. I'm gonna be heartbroken. You're telling me that sucks, bro.
I hope so. Greek mythology is about trauma. It's about loss. But I've always admired stories and writers who just let the story breathe, right? Even if a character is if the character's in a situation and there's no way they should get out of it, then they shouldn't get out of it, and then you should let the story be dynamic. And then, okay, now what happens when this character's gone? And that actually it's scary because, again, like I said, I have the ending already. And when I get to that ending, the characters that started it in my mind might not be alive to be there, right? So you have to have an ending in mind, but you also can't be a slave to it. You kind of have to try to get to that ending, but you have to let the story unfold naturally.
Gotta let it marinate.
Yeah. Marinate. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you, on the publisher side of things, like, what surprised you most? Like, first, why Nakama Press? Any good surprises in working with them and / Mad Cave?
Yeah. Let me give a shout out to the president of Mad Cave, Mark Irwin. He's actually in Japan right now.
Hey.
Yeah. Him and his wife are here, and we had a beautiful, beautiful time meeting with them right after Star Wars Celebration. They actually came to a party that we threw yesterday, Sakura Phoenix, in our partner studio. Yeah.
This right
Uh,
here, man.
yes, yes. So we're partnered. If you know De Art Stagio, they're the first American-owned anime production studio in Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
they've done a lot of projects. If you know, most recently Star Wars Visions. If you guys have Disney Plus, check it out. Season 2. Arthel, good friend of mine. We're partnered to make these events. It's called Legacy Art Japan, and we got Ryan Benjamin. Those of you that are comic fans, you probably already know Ryan. He's been in the industry for over 30 years.
Heck yeah.
Image, Wildstorm, Marvel, DC. So we had a 5-story event last night. Art, live music, DJs, and
Woo!
yeah. So we had Matt Cave
And you're
announced.
okay? And you're gonna do it again? What's going on?
So let me tell you. I'm on Tokyo time right now, so it's 7:30 in the morning. I got up at 6:30 for this podcast. I didn't get home to 2 a.m.
I hope you're all right. Are you taking a nap
I'm
right
good.
after?
I'm good. It's all about momentum. It's all you got to just keep rolling, right? And so we're doing it again today. We're doing it again tonight. Those of you that are watching this that might be in Japan, if you're in Tokyo, come on through. It's a free event with one drink, but you probably might have more than one. But working with Matt Cave has been great. They have a lot of different types of stories. Nakama Press is their manga imprint. Manga sales right now, when you look at traditional comics, are in some places, eclipsing traditional Western comics.
No,
So it
absolutely.
so it looks like right now manga is kind of the mainstream future, and so I'm so honored and privileged to be a part of this new story. Matt Cave's been around for 10 years. They released Gatchaman last year. That was one of their biggest selling books of all time. And the company that owns the license for Gatchaman is a company called Tatsunoko Productions. Those of you that know Gatchaman, if you know Speed Racer, there's
Okay.
a Samurai Pizza Cats. There's a tons of other things that they've made. And so we have another book which we'll talk about hopefully later, where we've actually licensed some of the IP from Tatsunoko Productions, and we're making a
Ooh.
brand new manga that this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to announce it.
Oh man, yeah.
And
I see your energy already spiking up.
yeah.
It's
So
not
we
the dream project.
Yeah. So with Nakama Press, it's I think we have the second book that's launching. The first book launched. It's a different IP, launched this month, and then next month in June, I think the second book they ever published is going to be God Tier.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy to be in this situation, and for them to, those of you, I'll actually ask you. I'm not shy to beg, but to ask. But please click that link and buy that pre-order. It does make a difference. It does make a
And
difference
the
because
show notes, folks, make it easy. Support our
yeah.
creators out there, especially on
Thank you.
this look. Trust me, I'm enjoying it, and
Yeah.
I'm here, kind of like getting more excited as he's telling me what's going to happen, and be prepared for heartbreak. Apparently, so oh man,
Yeah.
and I gotta start thinking. Oh man, I'm gonna start building up. Who's gonna die? Shit.
Yeah. Well, so I came from an animation background. I studied animation in high school, and so my goal with Sakura Phoenix and our partner De Art Stagio is eventually to get our IP made into long form animation, right? And as you can see from our books, we try to do everything at the highest quality level. So we want to put together a really, really nicely made long form series. But the first step is for the manga, to have a community, to have a fan base, and
Yeah.
then we pitch it, to these streaming platforms, your Netflix, your Disney's, your Amazons, and
What
that's
about
the
your
goal.
Tubies, man? They're growing. They're gonna need some action.
Yeah. So we're hoping that we get support. So those of you that pre-order this, it does mean something. It does go to something. There's other creators of color like myself. I'm not the only one. I'm not the first one. I won't be the last one, but I'm the one that I think is trying to take this to a higher level. And we just need support. We need support, honestly. So get that pre-order. Share it with your friends. Help it, because all that goes towards us being able to walk into a meeting with a movie studio one day and saying, hey, this is something that people care about. It resonates with them. So therefore you should care about it. Therefore you should invest in it. And then hopefully we have a God tier live action movie. Hopefully we have a God tier, animated series. Hopefully you have those pajamas that I wore as a kid for Star Wars. That's what I want the next generation to have. And maybe they'll see some characters that look like them or sound like them, and they'll feel a little bit more ownership in that IP because they feel like there's a part of them in it. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Agree. It's like Unique Studios with their project that dropped that animated series Iyanu, the Child
that's
Wonder,
right? Yep.
And that's dope. And again, it's black-owned studios. It's a black-owned IP, and it's dope. It's characters that we can relate to as well. And I say we can't wait till other characters focus on saying that, but it's just nice to see. A little bit growing up, I didn't see all that. So this is being honest.
No, thank you. I mean, that's why I got into media studies, right? That's why I got into film. That's why I got into animation, is because I grew up in an era where I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. I was watching A-Team, Mr. T. Maybe I'd see him once in a while. Carl Weathers, rest in peace. I'd see him, but we were also the ones that that got blown up first. We were the ones that never made it to the credit. Especially as a horror movie fan, we kind of we didn't really make it past the title screen.
It changed though. Recently, it's changed. It's changed. It's nobody not the white girl that gets killed first.
yeah. But I grew up in that era, and that influenced me, right? I grew up. Thinking, maybe there's something, wrong with me. Maybe there's something, where that's why we don't make it, or that's why I don't see as many people like me. You get what's the right word for it? Media can cause problems sometimes, right?
You get desensitized by shit.
You can, your image of yourself can be affected, by how you're presented, and typically people of color, especially people with darker skin, are typically villains in movies. Watch Black Hawk Down for example. There's a lot of people of color. Like everybody has an AK-47 and a RPG launcher, right? Like there's not a lot of black characters in that have a positive image, right? So so I'm just trying to counter that, right? I mean, when you read this, you'll see that there are people of all different ethnicities, and I obviously I am a black creator, but I don't want this to feel like it's something that's made just for people of color.
Yeah.
The idea is that this should be something that people of all races, genders, creeds, backgrounds could watch, and it's something that's mainstream, but hopefully they'll feel that it's normal, to have a story where your protagonist doesn't look like a certain way, right? It's normal. And that's what I'm trying to get with everything we do. We have other IP as well that we're developing, and that's important to me. One thing that's important to me as well is female representation. So representing women in a little bit of a different light. So we not just people of color, but women. And so I have one of my first products is a board game that we're preparing to launch soon, and it was important to me to have a black woman on the box of that game, and to have her to be a strong woman who's not like overly sexualized, and to give something for girls to kind of to grow up and say, wow, this is maybe I see myself in this, or I want to be this way sometimes. So it's important to me to make these things where younger people can feel inspired. But God Tier is actually a mature book. So I want to put that out there. I had somebody gave me a review. They were a bit surprised because there is a little bit of sexuality in it. It is based on Greek mythology, right? Greek mythology is all about, that kind of stuff. But this particular IP is for mature audiences. But we do have another one that we're going to release soon that is for a younger audience. And, it's important, I think, for younger people to feel inspired. I was actually a Dare kid. I was a Dare kid back in the, day. And I was that kid that actually wore my Dare T-shirt to school, not trying to be, sarcastic. I was a kid was like, actually, yeah, it is good to, So yeah, I want kids to have something that's.
You must have had fun. I know. I grew up in New York, so yeah. The kids would not want to wear that T-shirt to school. Trust me.
Oh yeah.
That's the last thing you wanted to do.
It's funny now because you'd say like your comic book or your anime, like your nerd culture is mainstream now. You know, I was at Star Wars Celebration in Tokyo a few weeks back, and it was like everybody was into it. It was amazing. But when I grew up, I had to hide my comic book collection. You
You
know, I
mean
was secretly collecting comic books and then hanging out with my boys and stuff, but I couldn't talk to them about it because they would laugh at me and go, what are you doing? Why are you reading
luckily one day in a group chat, we all this so three of us discovered that we like comic books, and then we all of a sudden like, all right, we are our own clique within the group. We're the comic
well
clique all of a
well
sudden. Yeah, let's go.
I'll give a shout out to one of my friends, a guy named Kim that I grew up with in my hometown. And he was one of the main guys that was, tough and rough and all this stuff. And I hid my collection from him. And years later, I think after high school, I found out that he named his son after Clark Kent, you know. And it
Huh?
turns out he was a bigger fan than I was the whole time, and we never talked about it. So we both were hiding it, you know. But
My
right
man
now,
is me mugging you the whole time, and he's a nerd at home.
yeah, but I'm just so happy where we are right now that people that it's we're out in the streets, and
Yeah,
so I'm happy
baby.
now that people can enjoy whatever they're into, whatever it is. They cosplay, they put stuff on Instagram or whatever.
Furries. I was just in Georgia, and I was walking, and I look up and see a sign. I thought I misread it. I told my homie, "Yo, did I read this? Am I reading this right?" I said a furry convention.
Yeah, so it's okay, man. Here's what I say: if you're an adult, if you're an adult, you do what you want. I don't care.
He
I don't
said,
I don't
"Hey,
care.
live, baby,
Not
live."
my business. Not my business. I might not understand it. I might not relate to it,
They
but
were.
I'll allow it. So do what you want to do.
I started dying. I said I've never in my life heard about no furry convention before. This is the first time and in Georgia, done 80. Oh, this is gonna be hell. I gotta find out about it, see what happens. All right, so I know God tier one's just the beginning. You said it's volume two. You got a whole bunch of things mapped out. But outside of that map, I mean, are we staying within the lane of God tier? Are we getting spin-offs? Like, what's the long verse looking like? What's the long game
Yeah.
for the long verse?
Well, I'm actually glad you said it. That I've never thought of it as the long verse, but
Hmm,
but that's the idea. My dream is to be a Walt Disney. My
nice.
dream is to be a Miyazaki Hayao, where I have many different IP, many different stories that all have different vibes and flavors to them, and all of them I have a strategy to develop out into different types of media. So for God tier, we have the manga, obviously. I have a card game. I don't have any samples here to show you, but there's a card game, and people might never read the manga that can play the card game and really enjoy the card game because it has original mechanics. It's not like a Pokemon or a Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that. Excuse me. And then hopefully we get to the stage where we have the animated series, right? And then hopefully eventually the movie. And so for everything that we do, that's the strategy: is that we start with manga because it's the kind of the lowest barrier of entry as far as cost. And we build that fan base, and hopefully we keep that fan base. We earn their fandom, and then they go to the next thing and the next thing, and then hopefully we get to merchandise. And so that's what we're trying to build for all of these IP, and I have a project, like I mentioned, we're going to announce. It's already signed. It'll be published next year. That'll be a completely different plate that we have to spin, right? And we also partner with other studios that are trying to get their IP released in Japan. So I meet a lot of creators
Nice.
that have an idea. So if you're listening to this and you're a person that says, I have this idea, but I don't know how to put it into a structure, or I'm an artist, but I don't know how to write, I would invite you to build your community, find people that are like-minded, build a coalition. It is a huge amount of work to get anything to the level that we're trying to do now. And we're just at the beginning of this, right? And already, I got a lot more gray hair than I had a couple years ago. Um, but I think you have to know where you're going again before you start. And so I knew where I wanted my company to go. I wanted Sakura Phoenix to get to the highest level of what we're doing, and I just had to do it in steps. And so I hope that people get behind this, that they enjoy it, they see the quality, they see the originality, and then I hope that when we put out our next IP that we do next year, even though it's completely different, they'll go, okay, we know that these people are synonymous with creativity, with quality. So yeah, I'll tap into that too. And so that's what we're just trying to do, is to into these completely different ecosystems. and make something that hopefully resonates with cosplayers. So Typhon, the guy that's in the back of the that poster.
Yeah.
We had a guy at Comic-Con that dressed up in Tokyo Comic-Con that dressed up as Typhon.
Oh, really?
And it
Cool.
looked just, and so that to me was a moment. You asked before about those moments. That's a moment where I thought, man, I have an idea, and now I see somebody walking around that looks just like what I made. And that was a moment where I felt that it was really special.
Did you call out to them like you were there, like that was your child, son?
I was trying to get some of that gas that he had. I was trying to get lit. Elevate me to God tier status. But yeah, yeah. Where we at? But yeah, that was a moment. And then another moment I had was at a university here a few weeks ago, and I gave up my business card. We still use business cards in Japan. And I mentioned that I was a comic book, a manga writer and producer, and then I mentioned God tier, and they said, "Oh, I know what that is." And I said, "No, you don't, because it hasn't come out yet, And so I've always had to tell people who I am and what I'm doing. He goes, "No, man, I know what it is. It's Greek mythology, Pablo." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" It was announced on Crunchyroll the day before, which I didn't even know. Matt Cave had put it on Crunchyroll. This person read it the day before and knew about it, and that was the first time that I realized that other people were knowing about this besides me. And in that moment, it's almost like if you're an artist, right? You're a musician, and you're sending out your mixtapes, your SoundCloud, and then everybody that's a fan in your show, like maybe 20 people show up. It's your mom, it's your uncle, it's your high school friends. And then one day you're driving and you hear your song on the radio, if that's even a thing now. But it was like that moment for me. That was the moment for me where I felt like, wow, people now are starting to care, and it could roll into something big. And that was very special to have somebody excellent. So we're on Crunchyroll too. But if you want to, you can click and go to Mad Cave Studios, their site. They have all the information that you can pre-order. But yeah, that was special to have people now. And at the party last night, we had a couple, over 100 people that showed up, and a lot of them actually knew about God tier before I mentioned it. And so I was really happy to hear that.
Boss level, bro. Boss level living, bro. The long verse is here and it's here to stay, baby. Yeah, that's it. We're making it happen, kiddo. All right, so before we close out the show, man, two more questions over here. For the young creators tuning in, what's that one God tier tip that you would give to writers trying to break into the manga style game?
Wow, so that's a great question. Specifically, manga or just graphic novels in general?
Well, based on your journey, something you think that they could pull? What something that was difficult that you would learn? I don't know.
There's a couple of things I'll say to that. So first off is that spark, whatever it is, whatever your idea is, write it down quickly. Don't, maybe you're in the shower, maybe you're walking. I get ideas when I'm washing dishes, right? Write it down and then come back to it.
Soap and shit. Hold on.
yeah. I'm making a cake and I write the idea on the cake. But write it down, and come back to it. Maybe in a day, and if it still resonates with you, if it still means something to you, flesh it out a bit, write it out a bit, and then come back to it again in a day. And if whatever your idea has kept you interested and invested, then develop it. But if you're like, maybe it's a kind of I don't know, then don't waste your time, because whatever this thing is that you're about to try to bring into the world, it's like a baby. This is an 18-20 year journey with a lot of poop in the beginning. It's a lot of changing diapers in the beginning. So find that coalition, find somebody that's like-minded, that maybe you gel well together, and it's almost like a marriage. It's almost like you two or you three are going to be connected at the hip, because it's a long journey, and every step of it is challenging and rewarding. But if you're not ready for it, if you're not fully invested, ready to lose a lot of money in the beginning, lose a lot of time, a lot of sleep, You know, I'd say, watch, maybe do something else, do crocheting or something. But the other thing I would say too is once you decide on what you're going to do, think about how you want to tell that story. Maybe you want to, a U.S. comic or manga, but understand the limitations of the format. A page only has so much space. You can't make it bigger or larger, for most publishers, right? And if you have too much dialogue, people can't see the art, or it's too heavy. You get, you lose readers. So there's a balance to it. So I would say understand the limitations of your medium, and then push them as far as you can. Push them as far as you can, and think outside the box. But those are the things I would say to people is just to have the commitment to your idea. You can't abandon it in the middle, because then you abandon your fans, right? And so be committed to getting it to an audience and sustaining it. There's so many movies. I won't mention. Actually, I'll say Lost. I'll just say it. I was a huge Lost fan, back in the day. Watched every
all until that damn ending. What the fuck?
Right. So yeah, so not to throw shade on J.J. Abrams, but maybe he's butchered a few things that I was I was a big fan of. I won't mention any names, but you probably can't see my cup that I'm holding. Maybe you can't see what it is, but anyway, you just know where you're going before you walk out the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just know where you're leading people before you take them off a cliff, right? And so that's what I will say to creators is know where you want to go, and then manifest it. You said the word earlier, like manifest it. So, see yourself in the car that you want to be in. See your place in the apartment you want to be in. Like I said, I grew up in Detroit. I won't go into my family backstory, but it was a tough situation. And I thought of where I wanted to be. And I thought, man, I wish I could be in Japan. I wish I could be in Tokyo. And then you just have to have the patience to take the steps you need to get you to that. It's been a 30-year journey for me to get to this podcast with you right now. It took me 30 years to get in front of you, right? And so I hope that people don't have to take 30 years. Obviously now with social media, crowdfunding, those things make it easier, but be prepared to take the long road. If you take shortcuts, it'll hurt you.
I've been doing this. This website, Comic Crusaders, name was born in 2006. So next year it's going to be 20 years old itself.
Congratulations. We live in a world.
Being consistent, just not stopping, navigating, whatever we got to do, we got to do. And talking about people that do what they got to do, a big shout out to my man Tommy from World War Comics over here, World Comics. Okay, very excited for Nakama Press. God's looks amazing. Pre-ordered already. Congrats.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice.
Already making the ring, getting that money up, baby, getting that paper up. So this could be an awesome run. Absolutely. Now, this is it. This is the last one right here, brother. We have to close this out in that Comic Crusaders fashion, baby. Now, I need you to tell us, why should everyone out there cop God Tier Volume 1 Pray right now? I need you to hit us with that boss level pitch, bro.
Because it's a dope story with dope art. That's it. No, because it's different, because it's exciting, and it's going to take you someplace that I hope you haven't been before. And that's what I want to do. I want to take people to places you haven't seen before. I want to tell stories that you think you might know in a different light. We put a lot of effort into it. There's a lot of creativity, but I need you to give it time to get to where it's going. I hope that you get Volume 1, and then I hope you get Volume 2. And then when Volume 3 comes out, you're gonna go, wow, okay, that's what this is. So give it time to mature, as I would say. And that's what I would say to you. It's got great stories, it's got humor, it's got action. I just hope people give it time to get to where it's going, and I feel like you'll feel that it was worth your investment, and I truly hope that. I truly believe it. And we just need your support.
So let's make it happen, because the indie comic community is one of the best communities out there, and they know quality when they see it. Manga is hot. This is a dope book. It's American manga, folks. Don't you worry. Like you say, you ain't reading it backwards. You're reading it the normal way. No disrespect to the manga readers out there. But, you know what I'm saying? It's some dope stuff. So check it out. You can pre-order it right there at Man Cave. The link is also below in the show notes. All right. You can also check out that Crunchyroll stuff, man. And he's telling you, man, it's Crunchyroll Volume 2 in August. I mean, start learnings out there. This is the universe for you. Nakama Press, a big shout out. I mean, for real, this is what's kind of a big shout out to Mel too for putting this together from the Hard PR. If you're a creator out there, that need somebody out there that's pretty cool. Mel's a big boss, all right? So make sure you check out don'thidepr.com for your public relations needs, all right? So, but Mario, you rock, bro. I appreciate your time, man. I hope to see you at SDCC. Oh, is there any other kind of the SDCC? Is that the next one? Or is there anything?
That's the next one. There's a lot of other ones, but because we're traveling from Japan every time, right? I think SDCC is the next one. There's an event. There's a couple in New York. I would love to go back to Detroit, to my hometown, and do some stuff out there at those like Motor City Com and stuff like that. So, we'll try to work it out. But we have a lot of projects right now that we're working on here that's also taking our time, and just hopefully we can give people some value when we do show up. That they feel that it was worth their time to engage with us. So hopefully just stay tuned. We'll have some big announcements soon, and hopefully I'll see you in person. If any of you end up in Japan as well, I'm not too hard to find. I'd love to meet up with you at Tokyo Comic Con. We do Tokyo Comic Con. Let me tell you,
God is good, and opportunities abound. So you never know that if I get out of situations, that passport, listen, that's the dream for me to go out there. So I'll definitely hit you up. So, they can see Omega out there. So this white beard could say they hit Tokyo. Let's go.
I'll tell you what, I promise I'll take you out for some good Japanese food and sake and stuff. You have a good time.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah, let's go, man. Let's go. All right, folks. You know what it is. Thank you, my Crusaders, for tuning in. Thank you, World Comics. Check out my man Tommy. So you got a dope podcast, and he be dropping shows on the weekly, yo. A big boss, supportive independent comics. There's definitely fam out there in the extended network of Crusaders. You know what I mean? You know what it is, mi gente. Comic Crusaders is Omega. It's Mario Long. Support right there. That God tier, baby. That's what we do here.
Let's go.
See my baby. Wepa!
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.